Welcome to the Serendipitous Rebel Podcast. I'm Wendy.
And I'm Krystal. We're business coaches and retreat hosts for bold, purpose-driven women who are ready to build businesses that actually fit their lives.
This podcast is for the authentic, rebellious entrepreneur who's done playing by everyone else's rules. We know what works because we've lived it, coached it, and savored the journey.
Join us for real talk on business, life, and everything in between. Welcome back, everyone, to this week's episode of the Serendipitous Rebel Podcast. My name is Krystal, and I am here with my amazing business partner, Wendy. And today, we're going to jump into something that was prompted by a meme someone sent me about 2 weeks ago. And it said, I have been 10 different women since 8 a.m. today. And my reply back was, I feel that in my soul. So what does that mean? And what does that mean for a woman who is also trying to run a business as one of the women that she was today? Because the thing is that we're not just monolithic creatures, right? And I don't think we're all as great at compartmentalizing as we like to think we are. So before... Right. I mean, if you think about it, just in the morning, between morning and recording this podcast, I was a mom slash the herder of cats getting out of my house. I was the maker of breakfast. I was the chauffeur. I was the logistics coordinator for my kids' after school programs. I was a wife talking to my husband about the logistics. I was and then even in just the context of our business, I was handing things off to a bookkeeper on a call. Wendy and I were talking strategy on a call. We were also just catching up on personal things. So I was not just a business partner, but I was a friend. Well, actually, you were more of the friend in that call. I was more of the, let me unload on you for a second. But it's all of these things and all of these roles that we're juggling and we are carrying. And I think that it also kind of goes back to that idea that women will have like 10 different tabs open up in their head at any different time. And actually, if you're like me, I'm looking at my computer right now. There's like 100 tabs easily open on this computer right now. And that's how we walk into our day. And then we sit out and we're like, man, why do we feel so burnt out? Why do we feel so exhausted? Well, and I guess the answer is, well, duh.
Well, yeah. I mean, so if you're feeling scattered, unfocused, behind, or like you just can't get your shit together, this is definitely the episode for you, because the issue really isn't about being disciplined. The issue really is figuring out how to switch these different identities. And what it ultimately actually comes down to is, how do you get your nervous system to be able to do what you need, do what needs to be done? And how do you get your nervous system to calm down and really allow you to do what you need to do? Does that make sense?
It makes total sense.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I saw this viral post on TikTok or something that said that there was an MIT study and Cambridge replicated it that said, I'm trying to find it. It said it proved that women overthink because our brains process exponentially more variables. So immediately I'm like, okay, I need to find this study. What does this mean? No such study exists. It was a completely made up thing, which, don't believe everything you read on social media. And this is why. But it was viral. And I think it was viral because it felt true. Okay. There's no decision or no science, or I guess there's no science that says that women, that measures decision-making like micro variables. It's not even a thing, okay? But it resonates with women because of exactly what you said, right? we're so unregulated all the time and
Yeah.
so many different things. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, yeah. So what is the answer, Wendy? My
Oh my gosh.
guru life coach extraordinaire.
You know,
She hates it when I call her that, but yeah.
yeah, but it's really such an interesting thing because we are expected to be able to sit down at any given time and be super productive in whatever area of our life is. And it's like we're supposed to do this as if our brain hasn't already run a marathon. We haven't physically run it, but mentally, it's like we're all over the place. And I think it's really it's an interesting, I guess, process because what we really need to do is learn how, our brain, we have to learn how to exercise that brain and also our body in such a way that allows us to actually, in some ways, trigger, I'm going to say, like, trigger the falsity. It's a falseness because we will have been running around like as if
Mm-hmm.
we have run a marathon before 8 a.m. Yet we have to trick. That's it. It's trick our body and our mind into saying, oh, well, we're really calm. And I think that there are ways of doing that. And that's sort of jumping ahead to what this sort of the answer to this is. But let's do that, and then we can go back and converse about it. Some of the things that I think work, and I know this because I am very, very, very sensitive to transitions. I do not
Yeah.
do well running for like I don't do well running from point A to point B. So for example, I make sure to leave 10 minutes before I need to be somewhere else. So even if I'm just sitting in the car or I have a chance to decompress before
Mm-hmm.
I have to go to the next thing. And those are transitions. Yeah, yeah, I need that 15-minute break in between. I think about sessions. I think about an event I did, a conference. And I remember saying to the CEO, we need to build in breaks. Oh, no, 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 we don't need breaks. And I'm looking at him like, dude, we really need breaks.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't really build in breaks that were just beyond, let's get the speaker, one speaker to the next set up. So, and afterwards, the biggest complaint he got was people like, I'm running around, I'm frazzled. And even though they actually weren't physically running around, mentally they were. That's always stuck with me that you need to build in, whether you call it a bathroom break, whether you call it a coffee break, I don't care. You need to build in breaks in different phases of your life. You've traveled with me, do not expect me to show up at the airport just so I can run on a plane. Oh
Yeah,
my
this
word.
is where we are polar opposites because
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, I like to walk out of my Uber through security onto my plane, and that freaks
Oh,
Wendy out. So we go early.
yeah. No, no, no. Yeah. It's like there's a slight compromise, but not that much. But it's interesting. But what I guess I'm saying is, for those moments where you're in a million different directions before 8 a.m., think about building in those breaks. Like, so for example, today you had a call with your daughter's school,
Mm-hmm.
and then you went right into a call with the accountant or the bookkeeper. What if you had built a few minutes of just a few minutes, got up, walked in, grabbed a cup of coffee, then took the call? Oh, you have your coffee, but I bet you had it all along.
No, well, so I actually did that before I called you back is actually the
Okay.
interesting thing
See?
that I did.
Okay.
And I held
Yes.
up what I did was I held up my cup for those that can't listen
Yes.
to the podcast.
Yes.
I held
Yes.
up my cup of coffee to Wendy. But it is interesting how I did just kind of take a minute because
Yes.
what had happened this morning was Wendy and I were on a call. I got the call from school, so immediately had to hang up. You can't do a lot of transitional time from that. When your kid's school call,
No, no, you
you got to
can't.
answer.
Right.
Um, took that call, discussed business there,
Well,
and then the bookkeeper had called.
yeah,
And it was like,
yeah,
all right, I need to take this right away because
yeah,
I've been playing phone tag for a couple
sure.
weeks. Okay,
Yeah.
great. And then I hung up with her, and then I said, okay, I need to take a minute.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Um, what would you say though? Because one thing that's become very clear to me and it's hard, I think, when you come from corporate world like you and
Uh-huh.
I have, and you come to run your business, and it's really breaking this idea that I really should like go immediately from dropping my kids off at school straight to my desk, and I do not leave here. I'm holding my desk right now until I go pick them up. And
Uh-huh.
one of the big things that I've been thinking about a lot lately is letting go. And I mean, we don't do this anyway. I feel like we've been doing this for a long time. But letting go of this idea that every single day and every single minute needs to be a productive working minute.
Well, and that's a whole other, that is a whole other banana.
For sure.
That is a whole other banana. And I think if I could, let me just wrap up this one
Oh,
thing.
sure.
But I think that that's an incredibly important piece of this as well. But in terms of these transitions, and I think about it, if you have to go from, say, call to call, if you could, pick up the phone and say, just hold on for 1 second. And
Mhm.
during that, well, 1 second is probably a little bit longer than that. Take a couple deep breaths. Take a couple ums, or even, okay, and say this out loud. I'm taking off my CEO hat and I'm putting on my mom hat. So to
Mhm.
see how your body, the regulation changes with the different hats. And again, I don't know that anyone has studied that, but I would hazard to guess, if someone had, that there would be distinct differences in your breathing, your heart rate, your let's see, even your blood pressure when you're going from either one thing to another or from a different thing, because it's a very different space to be in as a CEO and as a mom in most instances.
Yeah, I would even simplify that a little bit further and just slow down, right?
Oh, well,
I
yeah.
think it's slow
Yeah.
down, and I think it's exactly what you said. It's take the breath, but I think that there's a big difference between frantically reacting in the moment and
Yeah.
calmly
Sure.
responding in the moment.
Sure.
And so I think it's being really intentional throughout your day of, I think I love that. I think it's a beautiful thing that you had just said. Recognize that a transition is coming, name it. Gosh,
Yeah.
what so much power in naming things. I
Hmm.
we could do a whole podcast on that, right?
Hmm.
And I love naming and identifying the role, because I think it even goes back to, like, there have been studies that say that the way you dress and the way you show up for things change your persona.
Sure.
I don't want you to go get changed every time you have to change your persona, because gosh, nobody has time to do that much laundry. And you will wrestle me out of these sweats when I am cold and dead in the ground. But at the end of the day, there is something to be said about just that mental change
Yeah.
of the hat, of I'm taking off my work hat and I'm going to put
Yeah.
on the mom hat.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is like a mental dressing,
Yeah.
wardrobe change.
I really like that. And it's interesting because yesterday, I actually changed clothes to do a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And something about that, and also I put my face on. Well, not really. As much of my face as I'm willing to put on. Lipstick.
A lipstick. A
Lipstick.
lipstick moment. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought, and I actually feel that there was sort of, I sat up straighter, and I had just gotten off the phone with my daughter. And
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting because I went from wearing that nurture hat to being more of the strategic CEO hat
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. And anything that can trigger in you a change. And for some people, I think that would be a fabulous idea. Changing clothes, putting lipstick on, or whatever it is that triggers in you, hey, I'm shifting states.
Yeah.
So, in terms of, you are spot on that we, in general, not just you and me, the royal every we, um, we do not allow ourselves white space. And we've talked about this before. We've talked about, the concept of working at 80%, and then that 20% is just allowing your body and your mind and your gut and all of that to decompress. And that's where you allow for the creativity, the curiosity, these skills that we really need in our lives, but that tend to get mushed mushed down when it comes to reactive. You can't really be curious and creative and judgment free when you are reacting, because that's not how we're wired.
No.
If we're in flight or fight, flight or fight, um, we're not going to think, ooh, we're not stopping and tilting our head and saying, what am I doing? No, you're just reacting. And I think that when you don't have transitions built in, and transitions can be anywhere from a few seconds to hours.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I think about when I think about these transitions and how do I minimize transitions in my day, and it's something that we've been working on behind the scenes in our calendars, is being very clear and boundaried around what is getting my dedicated time
Yes.
day.
Yes.
And really trying to figure out,
Yes.
there are days where your calendar is stacked and you are going to have to do some flip-flopping and probably more transitions that you'd like. That's just life. That's part of being a business owner.
Sure.
There's a little part of our ADHD personalities that really
Sure.
thrive on that. But there were also things, and I'll use yesterday as a great example for me. Yesterday needed to be my special education day.
Sure.
We had a lot of other things planned. And I think, and I love this about our working relationship and about you and I, was that you were able to backfill for us in a way that let me off the hook of some responsibilities at Serendipitous Rebel, that allowed me to just be focused on special education stuff.
Right.
Work I'm doing and on my kid. And because I think the mental lift that would have taken me to go back and forth all day would have really just broken me, to be honest. I think it would have broken my brain. But it was able to have the dedicated time yesterday to work on that for my personal life, so I could come back today and say, okay, I'm ready for Serendipitous Rebel. I'm ready for work. I'm ready to give all I've got over here, because I'd finished everything over there. And what a great feeling it was to not have all these major things on my to-do list for today. It was just a focused category, which felt so good, and something that I've not been putting into practice. As much as we talk about white space and I need to do these things, there's talking about it, and then there's reality of, like, your calendar just fills up. My husband's been on me forever. I haven't seen my OB in way too freaking long, and he's like, you ever gonna make that appointment? And I'm like, no, because I don't feel like I have the time. Well, no, what I really need to do is build in, hey, these are days for personal appointments, and where I can actually go and do those things and not try and pivot and find a weird in the day.
Well, and you want to use me as an example. Let's use me as an example. On my calendar, my mornings generally are not for working. Tuesdays I do have a standing call, but other than that, that's my exercise time. It's not really it's generally not flexible. And it's built that way on purpose, because this way my mind is on one particular thing. And that's not to say that I don't think about work, because I usually do in the morning, but it's not formal, and it's really meant for those creative juices to come flying out. And then I do the exercise, and then while I'm driving home, I have, I don't know, 10 or so minutes to breathe, to decompress, generally to call you and sort of get the ball rolling. But it's very much of a transition. I get home, I'm usually ready, then I'm ready to work, and I feel like I'm in a good state for a few hours until I want to take a nap. But I think that definitely looking at your schedule, and I know a lot of people are like, well, you're just lucky you get to do that. Well, I'm not so sure. Even if we've decided that we want to be entrepreneurs because we want a flexible schedule, I don't know that that actually means a flexible schedule. I think that can mean that you still have certain things that you need to do to be successful. If you want more than a hobby, then there has to be some, and that may be a very scandalous comment, but and I think about this as well, because um and this will be an upcoming podcast episode, but interviewed Michelle Vroom yesterday actually, and her business is around, hitting six figures on 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
In order to do that, you need some structure. Now, it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that the structure looks the same every day, and it
No.
does not have to. I mean, my Mondays do not look like my Tuesdays or my Thursdays or whatever. But in order to do what you need to do, you do need to have some structure in place. And I love the idea of saying, like, I try on Mondays and Tuesdays, if I need doctor's appointments, if I need to get my hair done, which I also did yesterday, yay. Um, and those sorts of things, I try to schedule them specific days, specific times. And if I schedule far enough out, I'm able to do it. Like, I know my next two hair appointments, they're on the calendar already.
I
I'm
don't even know what that would look like, Wendy.
but see, okay, my dear, these are the things that, then, you know what, we need to co-work, where all you do is schedule your shit.
I mean, see,
Okay.
this is actually like the hardest problem. If it's in the
Yeah.
calendar, I'll go. It's
Yes,
getting the
exactly.
shit in the
It's
calendar.
getting it in the calendar,
Yeah.
and that's right. And I think that we will be co-working this week about, and I, don't get me wrong, I have needed to schedule a colonoscopy for way too long now. And it keeps, every week it pops up, and every week I just don't make that call.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, once you have it on a calendar, and you can see, well, this is when I prefer to exercise, or this is when I prefer to do social media, or this is when I need some just white space journaling time. Whatever it is that you need to function at your peak, and that brings you the most joy. Again, it goes back. I think that maybe we need to sit down and do a call or a podcast episode about your perfect day with everybody. Um,
Let's
wouldn't
put
that be,
that in the hopper. I'm writing
I
it
know,
down.
wouldn't that be fun? Because if you know what your perfect day looks like, and that is based on what is your purpose? What is your mission? What is it that you want to accomplish? That, what hats do you wear? All those sorts of things. If you take a look at all of that and create a perfect day, then you're able to say, well, this is how I can slice and dice. And again, it doesn't have to be set in stone. Nothing is meant to trigger judgment. Well, I didn't do what I was supposed to do on paper. That's not life.
Right.
Life is not like that.
Right.
But if, again, 80% of the time you're able to just kind of have an idea of where you need to be, what you need to do, then hey, see how that works and see how your body responds. Because like yesterday I got, a message from you and I'm like, she's either incredibly frazzled or she's incredibly mad at me. I wonder which one it is. It was the tone, and I knew right away by the tone that I just naturally assumed you were frazzled.
Thank goodness,
Yeah.
because I mean, if I was mad at you, you'd know for a
Right.
lot of other reasons.
Right.
But yes, I'm not.
But it just, and it said, what it said to me was, you need breathing room.
Yeah,
You need whatever it is. And it's really, 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 really important that we allow our bodies and our minds the opportunity to breathe. My
yeah,
gosh. Yeah. So white space, and the amount of white space people need as well, so different from person to person. It's, we cannot say, well, you should have X amount of time.
right.
I know that for me, having a slow Monday, that even if we have a couple things scheduled, but still a slow Monday, I really like that. I also like having a slow Friday. Wow,
Yeah.
that really shortens the week, doesn't it? But
Well,
it's okay.
I think it's about being really conscious. Again, think about the number of transitions in the day, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Slow Mondays to me mean we never would schedule client calls on Monday. I think we
Right.
used to and learned very quickly that wasn't a great way to do it. So
Right.
Monday is very much a strategy day. I feel like I talk to you all day on Mondays, but we still,
But
I
it's
think that's our
different.
I think that's our intentional, what I would call like deep work day. I'm
Hmm.
working on funnels. I'm at the computer. I'm working through things. Maybe we're working through content, whatever it is. But we are not jumping on calls with clients.
No, no.
We don't tend to schedule podcast interviews on that day. We don't tend to schedule. Um, we don't talk to the people on the day. Is kind of my point, right? And so
Yeah.
it's very much like that's our co-working time to get things done, right? There's not as many transitions. Tuesdays tend to be a lot more different things going on. You have a lot more standing appointments Tuesday mornings, and then we kind of run from thing to thing. What I've been trying to be really intentional about is if I can't do like I did yesterday where I make all day one thing, right?
Mhm.
Like all Monday one thing. I at the very least want my mornings and my
Yes.
afternoons to
Yes.
just be one thing. And so
Yes.
again, I'm going to minimize the transition, and I don't tend to schedule like even just a Pilates appointment at 11 a.m., right? Because it's too much in the middle of my working time. Like I try to be strategic and book in things, or if I'm
Yeah.
going to do that in my morning, I'm not going to do any work leading up to that. It's about just kind of identifying not just your white space opportunities, but also like when is your most creative times to work and how can you
Yep.
work around that, and when do you like I tend to crash around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Both of us are
Yep.
super early risers. Scheduling stuff late afternoons just kind of ends up being a waste of time for everybody. I'm too brain dead to coherently think through a lot then, right?
Yep.
So it's just a matter of being just so intentional about the time blocking of that white of all that space and all the working time as well.
Hmm. Yes, very much. And um, I think about it. I was a very big proponent of the Pomodoro method, and I
Mm-hmm.
actually still am. Um, as long as it's, and for anyone who doesn't know, what that means is you work, singularly focused for like 25 minutes, and you set a timer. So literally, this timer goes off, which triggers in your mind, okay, you do a 5 minute break, and then you go back to doing it the next 25 minutes. And I
Mm-hmm.
think about it because there was a period of time where I would say 25 minutes of this project, then 25 minutes of like household admin, and then 25 minutes of another project. And thinking about it now, for me, that was kind of a shit show.
I was like that. I was like, actually, just hearing you talk about it
It's just
gives
yeah,
me
but yeah,
insane amounts of anxiety.
yeah, and I've actually tweaked it where I will do 50 minutes
Mm-hmm.
of work, of a project or work, take a 10-minute break, and continue doing work. So I'm not changing my hats
That's it.
because I don't need the Pomodoro method. If I have to fold laundry, I'm not going to stop after 25 minutes. Or,
Mm-hmm.
and first of all, it takes me 25 minutes to fold laundry. We got a huge problem. Or doing how, things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's finding whatever method works for you
Mm-hmm.
as an individual. And there are different methods, but in general, the ability to build in a transition that allows you to mentally say, I've finished this one thing and now it's time to move on to another.
Mm-hmm.
And by getting up and either stretching or even yawning, really an over exaggerated yawning, or getting coffee or a beverage or something, that actually becomes a bit of celebration.
Mm-hmm.
I have finished this task. I'm putting it to rest. I'm then going to move on, but I'm going to do it, yay, in between. And I know I don't drink coffee, but you do. And there's always a yay with coffee.
Well, I drink enough for the both of us, so we're perfectly
There we
fine.
go. There we go.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it just gives you that. I think the accomplishment gives you the dopamine hit to like launch into the next thing with some energy.
Yes.
And it makes
Yes.
that transition just so much
Yes.
nicer, right? And
Yes.
that's the whole key part of Savor, guys. Savor is in happens. Ritualize gratitude and celebration. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean to be a huge life altering, like you don't need to, I mean, get your champagne on, get your bubbles on if you want to get your bubbles on, but it doesn't mean every single time we got to pop the cork. It really means
Yeah.
we're just going to sit back and like reflect in gratitude that thing is done, or notice the transition and the good moment.
Yep.
I think that's so
Yep.
part of the art part of Savor.
Yeah. Very much so. Very much so. And in this process, I think really it's realizing that not only do you not want to be 10 different women all at once, but you really can't do that. And so wearing 10 different hats in that quick succession by 8 a.m. Oh my gosh. I get it though. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been there, I've lived it. And to some extent, have to, I have to aggressively and vigorously and consciously work through those things um, to maintain sanity.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think that's really what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree.
And the need to be fully present in any moment. Well, anyway, I would love to know what our listeners think. Are
Mm-hmm.
you nodding heck yes? Are you saying, oh no, I've totally got my shit together? I'd actually really love to know that. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you manage all the transitions and all the hats that you have to wear?
Yeah. Yeah. We definitely want to learn from you all as well.
Yes. All right, guys. Well, thank
So,
you so much for joining us today. So just as Wendy had previewed, next week we are joined by Michelle Vroom.
yay.
And that was a super fun conversation that Wendy got to have with her. So we will see you next week. Until then, guys, have a great week.
Bye. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a rating.
But only if you liked it. Otherwise, just keep it to yourself.
You can learn more about our upcoming masterminding opportunities on our website at serendipitousrebel.com.
And if you have topics you'd like to hear about, be sure to submit them on our website or DM us on social media.
Hey, see you next week. Bye. Bye.